Hi folks, how you doing? It's James, JT at the movies, and I'm finally back. And I only just came back after a really long hiatus, didn't I? And then I seem to have disappeared again. I'm really sorry about that, folks. The long and short of it is that we moved house. This is a completely new location, and obviously the stresses, the joys, the challenges that go with moving house have kept me rather quiet on the YouTube front. So don't worry, we're going to be back to it with regular content, movie reviews, unboxings, Blu-ray 4K updates, all that sort of stuff, and a tour of my new movie room, which is just over there. But that's all to come. Today is Batman release day. It's the 4th of March, or it will be at least when you're watching this. It's actually the night before for me. But yeah, it's the 4th of March release day for The Batman, directed by Matt Reeves, starring Robert Pattinson as the titular hero. And this film obviously got delayed through COVID, didn't it? And so we've been waiting quite a long time to see this film. And I thought as a bit of a nice sort of link in, I do my own personal ranking of the theatrically released Batman films that have come out thus far. Now, what I do want to stress, when I've sort of written this list up on paper and looked back at it, it's not the most sort of conventional of listings, but it is true to how I feel about these films. And that's on a subjective level. If I were making an objective list, I would just like to stress that probably The Dark Knight, Batman '89 would be absolutely top tier, top of the thing. But in this, they're not. They sit somewhere else, and it's purely based on the enjoyment that I've gotten out of these films over the years. And some of it's even nostalgia as well, growing up watching these with my dad, and you know, with childhood friends and friends into adulthood as well, and sort of the memories that they hold for me, rather than maybe some of the actual quality of the film itself. So please bear that in mind, and to quote my good friend Carl over at Carlinho9, it's not the right list, it's just my list. But let me know obviously down below what your thoughts are, and what your own ranking of these movies were. Before I jump quickly into the list, I'm just going to let you know that the Lego Batman movie isn't in this list because I've not actually seen it yet. Coming in at number 10, at last place, it's Batman and Robin. Probably no surprises to anybody there. I think that this is the weakest of the theatrically released Batman films. George Clooney was horribly miscast. The ice puns coming from Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze were horrible. The rubber nipples, the really sort of over the top campy dialogue. You could argue it's a love letter to the 60s TV show, but if that's what they were going for, they shot and they missed, I'm afraid. And it's quite ironic, really, that it's sort of obviously gone down in history the way that it has, this film, because when it came out, it received rave reviews, which was absolutely mental. I remember I was only a young kid, I'd have been sort of 6 or 7, I think, when it came out. But I remember sort of reading things on like the newspapers that Mum and Dad would have around how great this film was. And then obviously when you see it as a kid, it's just an extension of the cartoons that you've been watching. So of course when I was a kid I loved it, but I've had a chance to reevaluate that. Coming in at number 9, we've got the most recent theatrically released Batman film, or sort of almost solo Batman film, I suppose you can call it. And that is Zack Snyder's Batman vs. Superman, The Dawn of Justice. Now, the problem that I have with this film is not Ben Affleck as Batman. He is superb. And as much as I'm looking forward to seeing what Rob Pattinson is going to do with the Batman when I go to see it this weekend, there is a part of me that has a little sort of tinge of regret that it's not Ben Affleck making that film, because I think that would have been superb to see. He really is the highlight of Batman vs. Superman. The film's overlong, and it's a convoluted mess. It's visually stunning, which is usually the case for Zack Snyder's films, but the story leaves a lot to be desired, and some of the gambles that he's taken with portrayals of certain characters and the way that characters would interact, and the way that he's taken stories like, The Dark Knight Returns and Death of Superman and various other DC stories and sort of melded them together. It's almost like he's sort of blown DC's sort of like 10-year plan in one film, and it's another shot and a miss. which is just a real shame because Henry Cavill's superb as Superman, Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman is superb, and Ben Affleck is probably the best of the three of them with his iteration of Batman. The costume is fantastic. I think that he gets the Bruce Wayne, the Batman balance just right, which is not something that all the actors have been able to do who've taken on the role over the years. Coming in at number 8, we have the first theatrically released Batman film, coming out in 1966, the adaptation of the 60s TV show starring Adam West and Burt Ward. And this was... It's just a fun little adventure, really, isn't it? And I've got absolutely nothing against this film. Again, this was one that my dad introduced me to when I was a kid, and had a lot of fun watching it over and over and over and over again on the old VHS that we had. And I've obviously subsequently upgraded it to DVD and Blu-ray and whatnot over the years. And if I'm doing a run-through of the Batman series, I will stick it on and I'll have a laugh with it. Is it a little sort of... hard to get through in places? You know, does it drag a little bit? Is the humour sort of not aged well, or you know, whatever? Does it drag sort of in places? I suppose is what I'm trying to say. Yes, it does, but it does know what it is. It knows that it's a tongue-in-cheek portrayal. It knows that it's a comedy. It's not trying to do serious Batman. It's very much sort of tackling that sort of golden age of the comics where, you know, there was Bat-Dog and Batmite, and you know, Batman would have a pink costume to go and do this and an orange costume to go and do that, and all that sort of really sort of vibrant, campy sort of fun. It knows what it is, and I think it executes it perfectly. But that doesn't mean to say that it hasn't sort of dated and aged as well. In at number 7, for me, it's Batman Mask of the Phantasm. This is the spin-off, and one of the many spin-offs of the DCAU animated series that started in 1992. This film is absolutely superb. I adore this film and the story. Obviously, it's the story of Bruce Wayne, Batman, hunting down a mysterious vigilante, the Phantasm, that is killing off all the old mob bosses, and he's on the hunt for the Joker, who used to be part of the mob before his transformation. And then we also get a bit of a backstory into Bruce's previous life before he was Batman, and him almost giving up the fight for Gotham because he'd found happiness and true romance with Andrea Beaumont. And then how are those stories interconnected? And it's a great little thriller. And to say that it's a spin-off of a cartoon, a kid's cartoon no less. The writing's top tier, the music's brilliant, the voice acting, the animation, it's all absolutely superb, and it's one that often gets overlooked, I would say, by casual Bat fans. So if it's a film that you haven't seen, I would definitely go and check it out. Next up, we have the film that rebooted Batman for audiences in 1989. Michael Keaton takes on the titular role, and there was absolute uproar and backlash when this film came out. Not that I remember it, I wasn't born at that point. But, you know, it was pre-internet days, and people were writing into Warner Brothers and saying how dare they cast a comedian as Batman. And then the teaser trailer dropped, and it was a really crudely cut together teaser trailer. You can find it here on YouTube. And it was really just to try and sort of bring some of that sort of negative energy down. And as soon as that dropped, people were absolutely sold, and this film sold out for weeks, people queuing down the road to see it, that sort of thing. And Batmania absolutely took off on the back of this film. As a kid, I didn't like this one that much. I thought it was over dark. And having not gotten into the comics as much yet, and sort of, you know, appreciating the lore and the world of Batman, I just didn't find it as gripping as say Batman Returns or Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, which are more visually sort of stimulating films, at least for a child, aren't they? And not that this isn't a beautiful looking film, but I just sort of found I don't know, something about it didn't really sort of click with me, if you like. But as I grew and became a teenager, this film really started to speak to me, and I thoroughly enjoy it now. I obviously love all of these films, and I don't know if I've mentioned that or not already on this list. If I have, sorry, but I'll reiterate my point. I love all of these films. Even Batman and Robin. You know, I'm still happy to go and watch it. In fact, it was one of the first 4Ks I bought when I upgraded to 4K. I got the 4-pack of the original 89, 97 Batman movies, and enjoyed watching all those through, you know, and ice puns in 4K, the works. I do genuinely love all of these movies, but I've got to rank them in an order, and for me, 89 is a great film, but there are just a few others that pip it to the post. Coming in next, we've got quite a divisive one, I'm afraid, or at least it will be for where I'm putting it on the list, and I hope you stick around to hear me out, folks. I'm putting The Dark Knight in now. Now, I know that this would probably top most people's lists, and quite rightly so, because it is a superb film. But for me, there's just something about it that I've never fully clicked with. It's not to say that I don't enjoy it. It's not to say that I don't come back to it probably once a year. In fact, just the other night, Phil came round to have a look at the new gaff, and we actually sat and watched that film as a sort of a bit of preparation for the Batman, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, as I always do. I think what it is for me, and it's taken me the longest time to sort of work this out for this film, is the hyper realism of it. Is maybe not what I want in a Batman film, and I kind of want the sort of feels like it's lifted out of a comic book sort of thing, and feels a bit more cartoony. And I suppose it's the same with like to bring my other sort of film love into it, the James Bond ones. I'll naturally gravitate more to the outlandish Roger Moore films than I would say some of the really gritty Connery ones. If I'm just in the mood for a bit of easy watching sort of thing, I suppose it's that sort of thing. Obviously, the performance with Heath Ledger is absolutely superb as the Joker. Bale puts in a great turn as Batman, and the rest of the supporting cast: Morgan Freeman, Aaron Eckhart, Michael Caine, Maggie Gyllenhaal, and Gary Oldman. Who can forget Gary Oldman? Are all absolutely brilliant. They all bring their A game to it. It's a great little story. Like I say, it could largely happen in a real city, and I just can't quite put my finger on what it is apart from that it's uber realistic that just sort of takes me out of it a little bit, which I suppose is what it is, isn't it? It'd be daft if we all like the same things, I suppose. And so in at the number 4 spot we have The Dark Knight Rises. Now this one for me, and I suppose really with my top 4 at this point, it's a lot of nostalgia that's influencing where they've ranked, and it's the memories that they evoke as well as the films themselves. I know that the 4 films that are remaining aren't perfect, and obviously if you know your Batman films, you'll be able to work out what 4 films are left, and you're probably thinking, really, James, these are your top 4? But they are, and I stand by it. And for me, The Dark Knight Rises was one of those where The Dark Knight had come out, and obviously I was a teenager when it came out, and the hype was real. And it ends on a bit of a cliffhanger, doesn't it? Batman's having to take the heat for everything that Harvey Dent's done, and then Nolan came out and said, well, I don't know if I'll make another one, really, and I'd only ever intended to do the one, and Warner Brothers wanted the Joker Easter egg at the end of Batman Begins, and then we were able to reach an agreement to do The Dark Knight, and so whether he'd ever had this sort of trilogy game in mind fully, there was all that sort of commentary about, was somebody else going to have to come and do another one to finish it off, or were we going to get another one? So then when this film got announced, it was like, oh wow. And then they said that they were doing Bane as the lead villain and Catwoman as a secondary villain, although she's more of a supporting sort of protagonist rather than antagonist, isn't she? But when they announced Bane and Catwoman were going to be the bad guys featured, I'm like, oh bloody hell, because obviously the only thing we'd seen with Bane so far, live action at least, was the horrible iteration in Batman and Robin. And then again, by this point, I'd sort of got into the comics and read Nightfall and various other stories featuring Bane and his various adventures throughout the Batman animated series as well that I was well familiar with. The Over the Edge episode in particular been a great one, and so I was really excited. And then they said Tom Hardy was going to do it, so that was like, wow, fantastic actor's going to do this, and it really just became a hype train for me. And me and some of my closest childhood friends went opening night to the Media Museum in Bradford to see it in IMAX, it was actually opening morning. We went, I think it was like a 3 a.m. showing or something like that, and we all just came out of it just like it was. And then I booked to go and see it the following evening again, and went with my dad and my sister, and I ended up seeing it about 4 or 5 times throughout its theatrical run in the cinema. I just absolutely fell in love with the story. Now, does it have its faults? Yeah, it absolutely does. There's the big plot holes. How does Batman get from the Middle East back to Gotham while it's all shut down? You can just say, yes, he's Batman, and there are so many things that don't make sense about it. But again, to my point with The Dark Knight, I sort of come into these films suspending disbelief and don't really want to be sort of thinking, all right, okay, well, it has to be uber realistic, and how's he going to do that? Realistically, if Batman were real, the guy's energy bills are going to be through the roof. He's got a nuclear cave under his house. And it's like the bit in Family Guy, really, isn't it? Where Stewie goes, "Well, Batman, you built a lazy Susan for your car. That's something that people were going to talk about." And I suppose that's the sort of thing, isn't it? It's that escapism, it's that suspension of disbelief for me that I really like in the Batman films. In at number 3, we have the first ever Batman film I saw. I was a huge fan of the cartoon, and that was my introduction to Batman, was the Mark Hamill, Kevin Conroy animated series that I talked about earlier with Mask of the Phantasm. And I absolutely loved that. And then one day I was sort of going through my dad's video collection on the shelf that he had in the front room, and was, Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, whatever, all the great hits of the 80s and early 90s. And then I saw Batman, and I'm like, "Oh, Dad, what's this?" And he goes, "Well," he says, "your mum won't want me letting you watch that because it's a bit grim, but go on then," which was usually the case. My dad would, if mum was out at work or shopping or whatever, he'd sort of turn a blind eye and let me watch whatever the hell I wanted. So I've got him to blame for how I've turned out, but it was Batman Returns, and I absolutely just fell in love with it. The gothic tone and the look of Gotham, the Batsuit, Michael Keaton's portrayal as Batman, Danny DeVito as the Penguin, Walken playing Shrek, Michelle Pfeiffer, of course, being absolute perfection as Catwoman. She's just absolutely superb in the role. And the story, I just found it all really gripping and really immersive, and it's probably one of the things that sort of turned me on to being a bit of a horror buff as well, because it really is quite dark and sinister and grim in some points, but it feels like it's been lifted right out of a comic book, which is again something that I really, really, really like when it comes to the Batman movies, and so this one will always hold a special place for me. So in at number 2, we have 1995's Batman Forever. Now, this was, again, pre-internet days, and this was a film that I didn't actually realise existed until after Batman and Robin had come out. I thought that there was Batman 1989, there was Batman Returns, and then there was Batman and Robin, and I had no idea this film existed. And I can still remember it clear as day, talking to one of my old childhood friends in the playground at primary school, and he was telling me about a Batman film that he'd watched where Jim Carrey was the bad guy, and I loved The Mask growing up. I loved Dumb and Dumber and Ace Ventura, and so I was like, "Oh my god, what's this?" And I had no idea that this film even existed. So I went home and told my mum, and she's like, yeah, absolutely, yeah, that is a film sort of thing. And then when we went to Blockbusters, we found it in the rentals, and she rented it for me, and I just remember being absolutely just fixated on this film, and again I thought that Val Kilmer did a great turn as Batman. I really appreciate Val Kilmer's Bruce Wayne, which I think is a sort of most people's opinion. He's probably a better Bruce than he is Batman, but I think he does a great job in it. And there are moments seen from afar, especially in the opening sequences where he's dangling from the helicopter, where he has a bit of a look of Keaton in the suit. And I thought that the continuity was quite good. I'm not a fan of the rubber nipples, as I've already said, and I get Joel Schumacher's sort of reasoning. We're going to make it look like a Greek statue or whatever. Fine, you do you, Joel, but like most of the Bat community, I'm not a fan. But I love Jim Carrey as the Riddler, and it really reminded me of like the Frank Gorshin portrayal, the sort of the 60s era thing, which I think is what he was trying to evoke. I know Tommy Lee Jones isn't really playing a sort of a character accurate Two-Face. He's essentially just the Joker, isn't he? Really, in all but name. But I love it, and to say that those two chaps hated each other, or at least Tommy Lee hated Jim Carrey, it's amazing the sort of the back and forth that they have on the screen. And it introduced Robin as well. Robin was one of my favourite characters from the animated series, and obviously we got that introduction of Chris O'Donnell playing Robin as well. And I really did like that sort of the way that they introduced that character. And this is a film that I still thoroughly enjoy now. It's more of a guilty pleasure as I'm a nearly 30-year-old man. But it is one, again, that I'll come back to probably once a year. It was the first 4K that I bought, along with obviously the other ones on Steelbook in quick succession. And I just absolutely love it. There is one film, however, that pips it to the post, because I feel that it balances everything that I love about a Batman film perfectly. And so, folks, in at number 1, we have 2005's Batman Begins. So, this film, I absolutely love it. It's my favourite, obviously, of all the Batman films released so far, and it's my favourite of the Nolan trilogy. I love the immersive world of Gotham that Nolan creates, and other people have touched on this in reviews as well. In the first one, in Batman Begins, he really goes to extremes to sort of be like, this is where the poverty is, and this is where the crime's coming from, and establishes it with the Narrows and with Arkham, and then you've sort of got the more sort of wealthy and well-to-do bit sort of doing the Chicago bit, doubling for, and how he sort of melds it all together. I think Christian Bale is brilliant as Batman, and obviously this was long before origin stories were overdone and overused, but we got this sort of look into, right, okay, so how does this guy actually become, almost a killing machine? I know he doesn't kill, but you know what I mean. And the training, and then of course, obviously Liam Neeson in there as the bad guy, and Cillian Murphy playing the Scarecrow. Scarecrow was always one of my favourite villains from the cartoon, so I was really excited to see him. And I was really disappointed when they cancelled Batman 5, because they were talking about having Nick Cage or Christopher Lloyd potentially as the Scarecrow in that one, and there was all sorts of things. So I was really excited that Scarecrow had somehow sort of carried over into the reboot. And this was the first time I really remember being hyped about a movie coming out, sort of thing. Because obviously we'd had the 4 Batman movies coming out in the 80s and the 90s, and by sort of 2004, 2005, I had them on VHS, and I think probably DVD by that point. And was watching them over and over and over and over again, as they were my favourite films. And I'm not kidding when I say probably every other month I'd watched those 4 films, and I was desperate to have some new material. And then they announced Batman Begins, and we got the promo images of Christian Bale in the suit, and the hype train was just off the scale for me. It really, really was. And then I went to see the film opening night with my dad, which is a real cherished memory. And we were both just sat there just like, wow, this is absolutely brilliant. And it still holds up to me to this day. I know that a lot of people think that he bettered it with The Dark Knight, and on an objective level, I would agree with you. But for purely subjective reasons, this one, Batman Begins, is my favourite. So there we are, folks. That's been my ranking of the theatrically released Batman films today. Obviously not including the Batman, and like I say, not including Lego Batman, because I've not seen it yet. I might do a follow-up video if I get round to watching Lego Batman at any point, and let you know my thoughts, maybe as a 5-minute films or something. I do hope you've enjoyed this video. It's been completely unscripted, and I just sort of wanted to speak from the heart and the mind, as it were, and sort of try and get my point across that way, rather than going, I like this film because A, B, and C. So I do hope you don't mind that it's been a bit sort of free format, if you like. It's really nice to be back again, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. Leave me your comments down below with your own rankings and your thoughts on this video. Drop the video a thumbs up as well if you've liked it. And if you are stumbling across me for the first time, and you've liked what you've seen today and you want to see more, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I'd love to have you stick around so we can get to know each other better over future videos, of course. Above all else, folks, enjoy the Batman when you go to see it, and take care of yourselves. I look forward to seeing you real soon with some more videos on this channel. Bye for now.